trying to do what's your name.
Okay. Good afternoon, all of you. I already introduced myself as Peter Henrich. I work as Community Manager Research at SURFnet, and I'm also leading a multidisciplinary team in which we try to combine the development of the bandwidth on demand service and the usage aspects of it. For today's presentation, which will not be a technical presentation but more how we organize outreach at SURFnet, I will first explain something about our organization and about community management, because I think that's a sub-department which is not very common in most INRANs. I will tell something about the contest Enlighten Your Research, and at last explain something about our outreach and support, how we are going to organize it on an integrated scale in the Netherlands, and finally explain some use cases. So I think most of you will already know what SURFnet is, the Dutch National Research and Educational Network. We connect about 160 institutions which represent 1 million users. I say this because it has impact on the way we want to try to organize the outreach and support for a large number of users. Not all 1 million, but I think in the Netherlands there are about 20,000 researchers, and how to reach all of them, or a large part of them, I will explain at the end of my presentation. So SURFnet is a task organization. It is part of the foundation SURF. SURF is a collaborative organization in which the Dutch institutions for higher education and research collaborate on ICT topics. And in addition to SURFnet, there are other task organizations like SURF Market, which is responsible for negotiating software licenses with vendors, but today also the use of commercial cloud services for our community. Another important task organization which recently joined this SURF family is SURF Sara, formerly known as SARA, the supercomputer center in Amsterdam, and also responsible for the operations of the Dutch National Supercomputer Center. And since this year, SARA has become part of SURF, which now is really responsible for a large part of the e-infrastructure for science in the Netherlands. In addition, I have also pictured the Dutch science funding organization, NWO, and SURF and NWO together have set up the Netherlands e-Science Center, which is not really a task organization of SURF, but a bit of a half-sister, and the NL e-Science Center is responsible for granting support to specific e-science projects and supporting them with manpower, programmers, e-science engineers, etc. So the Dutch e-science infrastructure is now spread over a few different task organizations, but all under the umbrella of SURF. So the institutions we deal with, we have a customer relationship from SURFnet. We deliver services which they pay for, but at the same time these institutions are represented in SURF, and so there is a strategic control on our activities via the SURF Foundation, and there is a customer relationship between the SURFnet and the ICT departments of the institutions. So how are we organized? A few words on that. In addition to finance and information organization and the Young Talent program, there are three technical departments from network services, middleware services and advanced services, and there are three departments responsible for the outlet, the outreach. There's a communications and marketing department which probably familiar to most Henrichs. They're responsible for the website, flyers, annual reports, etc. There's an account advisement department. They are responsible for the contractual relations with the ICT departments. And third, that is community support, the department where I am as community manager research. And we are responsible for reaching out to end users. In my department there are product managers for end user services, community managers for education, and community managers for research. So community managers research, we now have currently a team of 3 people. We all have a background in research. I'm from originally a theoretical chemist, but that was a long time ago. So the idea is that we represent the users and the researchers within SurfNet. And we not only focus on individual researchers, but we focus on relatively good organized groups of researchers. Well, for instance, the radio astronomist and the high energy physicist are already named, because these are much easier to deal with because they're large degree of organization. And third, we also do relationship management with other e-infrastructure partners, amongst others from within the SURF family. But also we talk to other providers which can offer relevant e-services for our community. So as a community manager, we are like an interface between SurfNet and our scientific researchers, scientific users. An important part of our job is to create awareness of the services we have to offer to these target group. And we would like to involve the most advanced users in our innovation programs. And with them, we want to create use cases and collect the user requirements. So in order to improve our services and to enhance the awareness. At the same time, we will try to identify and remove barriers which may prohibit our services of being adopted by the users. So what kind of activities do we do from our department? Well, we organize workshops and we organize seminars, not only with speakers from within SurfNet, but also from our institutions themselves. We perform market or user surveys to get to know our users better and try to identify what their needs are. One of the activities we have done is to set up a bandwidth on demand user group, which I will explain later in my presentation. And we have set up support teams to help our users to implement their services and integrate our services with well, the other services they need. To give an example, most scientists are not really interested in the network part of the e-infrastructure. They are probably busy with their instruments and their computing or storage, and network is somewhere on the lowest priority. And of course we organize contests like Enlighten Your Research. And to explain Enlighten Your Research, I would like to go back a couple of years, because that was the time we created the idea of how to set up a contest. And it was when, I think in 2005, when our LightPath service first became available. Our LightPath services was developed for the really high-end users, and it became quickly adopted by the ICT departments, who created optical private networks with them to connect the remote locations. But the vast majority of other scientists were completely unaware of the existence of this service and what you can do with it. So I think it was the governance board of our project in which we created this service told us, well, you have to do more about reaching out to the users and make this service really not only available but being used by a larger number of users. So how do you do that? We came up with the idea of a contest because first of all, to create, we wanted to create awareness, and we want to scout for innovative projects who could really use this kind of high bandwidth service. But we also needed to create best practices because most scientists I spoke at that time didn't identify with high energy physicists or radio astronomy. They said, well, I'm not that kind of a researcher, so I don't need the service. So we wanted to have more examples of other disciplines to make clear of what kind of purposes you could use an advanced network for. And a contest is a very good way to do it because a contest appeals to scientists as it resembles the way they respond to call for proposals for funded research. We already had a lot of experience with organizing contests. I think it goes back to the mid or late 90s when ThinkWest, I think it's a contest for K-18 scholars. The contest was founded by the American NSF, and we brought it to the Netherlands. And later on we used the concept for other purposes as well. So since then we have organized already 4 editions of Enlighten Your Research. The first one, 2007, I think the award was, the prize winners were awarded. And the focus in the first contest was static light paths. The second Enlighten Your Research was 2 years later, in 2009, and it focused on the use of dynamic light paths. The difference was that the second contest, since it was dynamic light paths, more than 2 points were allowed in the contest. In Enlighten Your Research 3, we went another step ahead, and we focused on the use of integrated e-infrastructure. A big difference with the 2 contests before was that we didn't do it alone anymore. I think the first 2 contests focused on the use of a network, and the third edition already focused on the use of all kinds of e-infrastructure components, and we collaborated with the Dutch Grid Initiative and with Surf-Sahara in that contest. And at this moment, Enlighten Your Research 4, which is, I think, a Dutch follow-up of Enlighten Your Research 3, is ongoing, and I think the prize winners will be announced next Thursday. And Enlighten Your Research Global is another contest which is also running at this moment, and I will explain a bit of that later. So why should a researcher respond to a contest like Enlighten Your Research? Because I think I now focused only on the last 2 contests, because they need storage and they need compute time, which they are already used to ask for at, for instance, supercomputer centers or Surf-Sahara. But they also need the use of network in between all these locations, and of course for Enlighten Your Research 1, 2, 3 and 4 we awarded prize money. Prize money is very attractive to the researchers, and the first contest we only awarded prize money. Later on we have learned that you should force them to use a part of this prize money to improve their local infrastructure at the universities. So a grant of 10,000 euros we granted as to improve the necessary infrastructure like switches or a router or an interface they should buy, and the rest of the prize money they can spend on their research or other things which they can decide freely upon, but they have to explain where they spend it on. It's interesting to see that when we organized Enlightening Research Global, which we have done with 4 other partners, I have to mention ESNet, FUNet, Internet2 and Janet, that in this contest we do not grant any prize money. We only grant the international connectivity, national connectivity if necessary, if not already paid for by the institutions, and of course support in implementing it. That was something very important also for our national contest. The support and the help you can offer a scientist in solving his implementation problem is very valuable. In Enlightening Research Global we don't offer any prize money, and still we received a couple of very interesting proposals. So I think what we can learn from this is that prize money is not always necessary, but I think as long as local infrastructure is already in place, because it still can be a bottleneck for the users to go ahead. In addition to the 5 partners who started the Enlightening Research Global contest, 4 others joined later on, and these are DFN, ARNet, Dante and Géant. I think I miss here the Brazilian RNP. I miss RNP here, but I'm sorry for that. Well,
stopped their proposal due to the shutdown in the US.
Oh, okay, that was the reason. So they became an affiliate partner somewhere along the line, but it stopped later on. Okay. What the idea was to bring the concept of enlightening research on a more global scale. I think the rest of the objectives are quite similar to what we have done in the Netherlands, to create awareness, to have a vehicle which you can use for PR purposes, etc. I would like to say something of the procedure of such a contest, because we wanted a lightweight procedure, not having too much barriers for scientists to submit a proposal. But what we have learned from our Dutch contest or Dutch competitions is that it's very important to exactly know what researchers want and how they are going to do it. So we have, I think since Enlightening Research 3, a procedure which consists of a first round. Scientists can submit a draft proposal on which not very, which is very low threshold. They just have to file an abstract of 500 words describing their research. The best proposals, or as much as you can handle, go to a second round, and in the second round we consult the participants, and that means that you really go visit them or talk to them via video conference, not only the researchers but also their ICT support staff, because we have to learn to know them, what their proposal is really based upon, if they have thought about all the complications and implications of their proposal, and if they are really committed. not only the researchers but also their ICT support staff, which is very important. In the first editions of Enlightening Your Research, we have experienced that if you just have a form in which you declare that you have spoken to your ICT support staff and that he is aware, that when you check this with the people from the university or from the institute, that's not always the case. Maybe sometimes they just spoke with an ICT support staff at the coffee machine that I'm going to file a proposal, and they consider that as good enough to go ahead and file their proposal. But we really wanted to know if the network people of the institutes have the resources and the skills and to support their own researchers. And if they are not prepared to do so, it would be a no-go, at least for that side. Also, the financial paragraph should be very sound, because we've also experienced that scientists forget to think of some necessary investments. Sometimes when you need a switch or maybe even an interface in a switch, even if it's only a small amount of money, if you don't budget it, it can become a large problem later on. So, this is about the consultation. What kind of network and service do you really need? If you only read a proposal, proposals are always very good news, a good news story. And we have experienced that the requirements that researchers have are very flexible. It's not because they adapt to a certain degree, they're able to adapt their research to what kind of means are available. They can adapt the ambition level of their research to the amount of resources that become available to them. But it's important that the resources match with each other. What I mean to say is that the amount of storage, compute and network have to be in good balance. If you ask for a 10 gig network interface, but your storage is not capable to do so, it's no use, and vice versa. So these are important things to learn in a consultation round, and that's why we collaborate with the people from the National Computer Center, which is now part of our SURF family. And these interactive sessions we have lead really to improved proposals, not only with scientific sound proposals, but also technically thought of. So I can explain now something about the lessons we have learned and what kind of barriers we have encountered in these Enlightening Research contests. First of all, the commitment of the ICT departments is very important, and this commitment has to be created beforehand and not afterwards. And we have also learned our relationship with the ICT departments, I think, has improved the last couple of years thanks to this contest. I think the first editions, we created a bit of annoyance because suddenly winning scientists said, well, we have won a prize and now we want some local services at the university. This is not really a good plan to motivate and make the network departments very enthusiastic. But if you involve them beforehand and inform them that a contest is going on and that brilliant scientists at their institute participate and that it's an honor to serve them. Now you have to think about the network departments and also make clear that you appreciate their efforts as well. It's not only a contest for the scientists, it's also a contest for the support staff. First and last mile issues, of course, I think you all are aware that these can be very problematic. First contest, we even have academic hospitals which were not even connected directly to SurfNet. But due to the winning proposal, they suddenly wanted their own fiber connection to SurfNet, so that was a positive thing. The drawback was that it took a year for the fibers to go into the building, and then the research was already over. Because research goes on, whether with or without a network connection. I think I'll come back to that later. Development and adaptation of other components. Often when the network service is in place, at that point the rest of the researchers and their staff are going to work on all the other components. They have to connect their equipment, maybe adapt the software they have, or all kinds of things, and it all takes time. And as I stated, just as the former bullet, time is very important for research projects. If you wait too long or it takes too long, the project fails. Security issues are also very important. I think not only the level of security, which may be very important, but also the way security solutions are implemented. Because with network services you have to deal with 2 endpoints or maybe even more. And we have experienced, especially in academic hospitals, that the view, what one security officer thinks is the best architecture doesn't necessarily match what another security officer at another site views considers the best solution. So security, not only the level of security, but moreover the a mutual view of how security should be implemented is more important. And I think this is also something that takes time. Funding restrictions, I just explained about sometimes you have to invest in some local infrastructure, network equipment, and scientists are not always allowed to invest in these kinds of things from their research budget. ICT departments often have very restricted budgets. It's always planned beforehand, and if you come up with new requirements, there's no money for it. And even if the researcher does have some budget, it's probably allocated or restricted to spend on PhD students or really research-related stuff, and not general ICT stuff. Well, the implementation time is time-consuming, which can be a very big problem if it takes too long. And what also is we have encountered is that not all sites have equal interest. A researcher on one site may have a large interest in a database or data at another site, and the other site may be willing to share, but not so willing to spend a lot of money to invest in their infrastructure to facilitate researchers on another site. So there the degree of organization becomes very important.
How do you deal with that? To really that?
I think it's very difficult to deal with from within the NREN, but it's that I think in the consultation round it is important to get a picture of how the commitment is of all parties, and if you really have to ask the question, are you willing and prepared to make all the necessary investments and adaptations beforehand, and not just grant a price and in the implementation process confront them with the possible implications. So if one party is willing to collaborate and share its data, you also have to ask them, are you also prepared to do all the practical things which are necessary and which comes along beforehand, not afterwards. I think that's...
You do that in cooperation with the local IT partner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the. I think I think when I started as a community manager research, I almost only dealt with researchers, and I think the last years we dealing both with researchers and IT departments, almost in a 50-50 relation.
I have another question, and if it's okay.
Yes.
I guess as a part of these contests, you advertise a lot of different services, and not only BUD, or is it only?
No, there are different kinds of contests. I think we were also busy with an edition of Unwire Your Research for wireless use of wireless networks.
I'm just curious because if you got any BUD projects, which you probably have any of those been international or only national?
I don't think we have an example of an international BOD project.
Because I think that's one of the problems that Tanguy encountered, but okay, let's not take that. Maybe we can take it after this presentation.
Yeah, I think so, because it's difficult to make a specialized item like bandwidth on demand as an item for a contest, because most scientists will probably be more interested in the resource on the other side, and well, whether it's a bandwidth on demand or a circuit which is always on and not used, well, I don't think they will bother. So you have to really look what is the type of problem you have, and so we can decide whether bandwidth on demand or maybe some other kind of technology fits your problem best. Because I think the researchers do not really have a clue in that.
Yeah, I agree.
Next slide. Some recommendations. Okay, yes. The users need not the light paths or the network services. They need the combination of all e-infrastructure components. So we have started to focus on the integrated use rather than just advertise the network services. And end-to-end guidance is necessary. And you need a project leader in the implementation project, because if every provider delivers his or her thing, it doesn't say that the combination is also working. We have seen many examples that well, storage is ready, compute is ready, network is ready, and somehow things do not work. And if there's not a project leader, nobody moves. And scientists are not always very good project leaders. Commitment of party, I already told that, and well, the grant proposal is some kind of a contract. Maybe it's an answer on your prior question, how to make sure you really have to sign that you want the prize and that you promise to do the things which you have promised in the consultation round. And that, well, budget there needs to be some budget to prepare campus infrastructure. The good thing is, once you have done it, other users at the same campus are more likely to go ahead easily, or relatively more easy. And well, these are the benefits from a couple of editions of Enlighten Your Research. I think we now have in the Netherlands quite a large scientific user community, which is not only interested in our network services, because we have seen that some of the earlier winners are also interested in our federated identity services, but they take things one at a time. So implementing their network services was ambitious enough, and when it's everything is working, they are ready to go for a next step, and they become interested in our other services as well. We have an improved and intensified relation with the ICT departments, which will, well, I will comment on that later. And also a better collaboration with other facilitating organizations, such as the funding organization in the Netherlands, and Surf Sara, which even become part of our larger organizational infrastructure. And we have got a better understanding of the needs and problems of our scientific users, which hopefully improves our services itself. One example of that is a bandwidth on demand user group, a group of users which reflects on our bandwidth on demand service. And in the course of the development of this service, they came together quite regularly to comment on each stage of our development. What kind of organizations are in that group? Well, our own network operations center, because they are an important user of the interface, representatives of ICT departments, and representative of users. And well, one of the important users was the Nexpress project, of which Paul is here present and was a guest of one of the participants in the bandwidth on demand user group. So the last, I would like to spend now some slides on what we are up to now to organize outreach and support on a higher level in the Netherlands, because we want to reach out to even more users we now have in our community. And these researchers are faced with a lot of questions. Where do I get compute? I have a lot of data. Where do I store it? I need to have access to services at some a remote service. How do I authenticate myself? And where do I drop all these questions? Well, since we have our and the challenge is that we want to support the really innovative user, the few users who are really know what they are doing and they are on the edge of technology, because we need these users to improve our services and do our innovation. But at the same time, we want to reach the long tail, the 20,000 other researchers in the Netherlands, and how do we organize support for them? Well, the answer is there's a role for the institutes. We have found that the degree of research support varies at institutions, but the last couple of years there is a growing interest in supporting researchers. I think ICT departments have spent a lot of energy the last couple of years to outsource regular or commodity services to the cloud or to other parties. I think they spend less and less time on web servers, on email, etc. But at the same time, the science is becoming more and more dependent on advanced ICT, and ICT departments or institutions are recognizing that more focus should be in that direction to support scientists needing specialized ICT infrastructure. These institutes are very keen on what is now going on in SURF, and they really like to know what we are doing. And they, not all of them, but most of them see for themselves an important role in supporting their scientists. So with the organization we have in SURF, we are in a very excellent position to organize the outreach on the level of SURF, where we have a landing page. We are creating a landing page on which all services of all task organizations are combined. And we will, next year, we'll organize a roadshow, which means that we, with representatives of all task organizations, will visit institutions. The institutions themselves will make sure that scientists or interested people will be become familiar with the fact that we will be present there. We will create a single point of contact on the SURF level, which may be an email address, and we will set up a pool of project leaders for these advanced projects. And this is important to do the implementation of all these advanced projects. The train the trainer is an important aspect, because these institutions who will set up a local science support group will get all the support of SURFnet and SURF-SARA. So this is what we will do. For the high-end researchers, we will set up a project leaders pool. We will set up train the trainer, community building, and for the long tail, a single point of contact, but delegated support which will be facilitated by the institutes themselves. So I will now, probably almost on the end of my presentation, I will have an overview of the bandwidth on demand users which we currently have in the Netherlands. Well, I don't want to elaborate on all of them, but I would like to explain one or two of them here, two winners of Enlighten Your Research. This is an infrastructure for biomedical population studies and next generation networking for next generation sequencing. So the first example is the light path for population imaging. In the Netherlands there is a project, population imaging is about doing brain MRI scans of a large group of citizens in the Netherlands. And the challenges the scientists had was they wanted to do early and accurate diagnosis, and they do that by selective people are they take brain MRI scans of a large group of people, and they repeat it sequentially. So I think this project is already going on for a couple of years, and at some point of time some people in this population will develop kind of brain disease. And if you look back then you can look back at the past and see if there are already signs of some kind of developing disease, like for instance Alzheimer. But to do so, you generate enormous amount of brain skim images, which cannot be looked upon by hand. They use computer tools, automated analysis to look at all these images. But the hospitals do not have enough compute power and storage to do so. So the problem was how to organize the locations where the MRI scanners are, where the storage is, compute facilities, and the visualization. So what we have built for them as an award in the Enlighten Your Research is the following structure. There are two academic hospitals, Rotterdam and Leiden, where the MRI scanners are, and these MRI scanners are generating the images, which are stored at SARA in their HPC cloud. SARA also has visualization compute facilities to analyze these tools, and a fourth collaborator is the Technical University of Delft, who is specialized in the visualization tools which the radiologists need to look at these images. So we've built static light paths between the academic hospitals and SURF-SARA, so they can remote mount the disks to their infrastructure on site. But the visualization is only needed every once in a while, so we have a bandwidth on demand connection between Delft and SARA. What was very a great accomplishment in this site is that, at least for the Erasmus University Medical Center, is that in accordance with the security officers on site and SARA, they have agreed on a procedure which made a firewall not necessary. In the setup of Leiden University, there still is a firewall between the MRI and the SARA cloud, because in that situation there is no image server in between. I think that was the important aspect in these two local architectures. Specific details I'm not aware of, but we see here that there's the beginning of how security officers become familiar with the concept of light paths, bandwidth on demand, or even or layer 2 circuits, and implement this in their local infrastructure. And I think I can stop now, or I can do one other example, that's the light path for genome research. And I look at Tanguy for that.
I think I mean, if it's 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
like
Okay.
one, I think
That's
it's interesting.
okay. You're probably all aware that next generation sequencing generates a lot of data, and this data has to be shared with a lot of institutes. And the academic hospitals which are involved in this project had a contract with a specific company doing their sequencing for them, and the data was shipped via disks. This was very inefficient because it was about a lot of disks. Sometimes disks broke or data got lost. You have to do all kind of checks and balances if all your data is present, and you have to fly well with airplanes across the world. And not to mention the amount of time you need in replacing all these disks to get the data, especially when you, as a researcher, you sometimes only need a small amount of data. So what we have done for built for them is a static light path to their provider, Complete Genomics in California. And in the Netherlands, we have set up bandwidth on demand services to all the collaborating institutes. So each institute is capable of setting up a light path, a bandwidth on demand circuit to the static light path to Complete Genomics. And this way sending the data in real time, or at least just in a file transfer, which makes the whole process logistically simpler. Well, that I think in a nutshell is the use case for this. I think if I look to Alexander, we have implemented static light paths to Complete Genomics because on the whole end-to-end path, bandwidth on demand was not technically possible, but it could be a use case for bandwidth on demand end-to-end.
The fixed part was from Complete Genomics to Netherlands.
Yes, yes. Yes, but if bandwidth on demand was possible on this part, it would probably have been implemented that way. Yeah. Okay. So I think we have done a lot. Do our best to have to get as much to help as much researchers as we can with this approach. And if there are any questions, I will be pleased to answer them.
Yes.
Yeah, let me start off. Obviously, one of the important questions I have is also to the audience here. I mean, who else than SurfNet is doing something similar in the sense of the contests, if any? Because that's, I mean, it's quite evident that in order to do BOD in the European footprint, I mean, we need real use cases on the long run, at least, and for that to happen, you know, we need more interest to be stirred up out at the edges. Yeah, but I know your experience. But anyone in the room except you and SurfNet.
DFN and FUNet are
were part of Enlighten Your Research Global, but I don't know if Bettina or Yanni know anything about what it triggered in your organizations.
I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not involved in that competition they made with this Christian in Berlin who is doing that.
Okay.
And I don't have so much information about it, what they are doing. But in fact, DFN doesn't do competition normally.
Well, the question is maybe more basic. Do you have people within the event focusing on user outreach?
Yeah, okay. You always have people or communities in the network who have special demands. Yeah, beside transmitting IP traffic. For example, the physics community, LHC community, and so on. And of course, from time to time, the LOFA project was mentioned. I think that is within DFN as well. We have some pops, LOFA pops in DFN, and if a group comes to DFN and says we have special demands, we try to find a solution for them, and now we are investigating in bandwidth on demand to if somebody is there who needs that we can meet the requirements. But at the moment we do a lot of things with layer 3 VPNs or MPLS based layer 2 connections.
Because we do a lot of innovation, of course, amongst all the enrons, and innovation is not just making a product. This is also about selling these projects to the end users, and you can't only sit and wait for users to come to you. You have to find them. You have to stimulate them to come up with ideas. I think so. Jerry?
Yeah, I would also encourage everybody to look at putting these services in as just something you do as part of your network management and operations. We all talk about all these different circuits that we're provisioning manually, and then we talk differently about the users. But they're really the only difference in these circuits, a dynamic circuit and a static circuit, is the way it's set up, right? And they can last forever. They can be there for years. It doesn't matter if it's dynamically set up. It just automates the process. So that process of just using automated tools for provisioning these things is enormously helpful to the operations staff.
It does have some implications, because one of the projects, I think, was the Life Science Grid. You see that some clusters who have access to bandwidth on demand services, and on the same time they're connected to regular internet, they get routing issues. So they have developed a concept. I think they use BGP to signal when a large amount of data is being transferred, and at a certain threshold they set up bandwidth on demand, not so to bypass, especially to bypass the regular internet connection of their institute. So there are different use cases or different cases why you may be interested in a circuit. And in this instance, it was just not to overload the institutional.
Right. There's been a number of those kind of projects. I think ESNet had some of those in the U.S. I forget. I'm trying to remember what the name. What?
Science DMZ.
Yeah. Same thing as Science DMZ, where they're trying to bypass, all the existing firewalls and stuff so that you can get good performance. Which I would also say is actually an interesting application of NSI here is, just as if you're provisioning across a network, you can use NSI also to provision through a firewall. It's just treat that firewall as if it were a device or a network, and put a cross connect in it, and it gets through all the authorization, authentication, and lets somebody dynamically punch a hole in the firewall if they've got the rules to do it.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Just a word to user demands, which we observe. Most people in our community don't want to get bothered with the network. Yeah, they even don't configure routing if they don't need to do it. Yeah, and so solutions. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and it makes things, even for us, it makes things easier if the demarcation point is clear. Where is our responsibility and where's the responsibility of the user? And solutions come to run if they are very simple for the users. So if they have to switch on something and use it, that is wonderful. If they have to configure a lot in the networks, then it doesn't come to fly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to a lot of what I was saying earlier today about all these different features that we want to put into our services.
Well,
But still, everything we're doing, including the NSI, only makes sense if we can serve these special needs. Even though, I mean, it's true, like circuits can be used internally. When SNET says that Oscars is responsible for 50% of the traffic, it's because it's very long-term circuits. But speaking about end users, and I think in this presentation there are a lot of issues that then we need to deal with in different ways. One of the very tricky issues is asymmetry between two endpoints. Typically, when I speak to a Danish user, they want to connect to somewhere in France or Germany or the UK or the US. And typically, it's a small institute in Denmark who wants to speak with a big database instrument, something, and they are less interested on the other side. And it's a very complicated issue for which we need some hacks now. We need ways of getting to IPP in Germany before we can do it dynamically. And yes.
Well, I was just going to say some of that goes back to the topology issue too. I mean, users they don't really know about STPs and all this stuff. What they need is a directory that says, here's the instrument and here's the endpoints associated with that instrument. That's where I need to get to.
Yeah.
And they just want to press a button and have a guaranteed gigabit next week at noon, right?
Yeah, okay, but what do you regard as an end user or a user? Because I think a lot of NRENs describe a user, which I would describe as some kind of ICT or e-infrastructure support person. For instance, you, Paul, you are regarded as one of our users, but I think behind you are a lot of radio astronomists who maybe you are helping or providing.
Oh yeah, it's even twice removed in the sense that I am the networking guy for Jive, and then Jive runs the instrument for the astronomers.
Yeah.
So in that sense, the astronomers are never going to care about it, but we,
No.
as we run the instrument, very much care about giving the best service to our astronomers.
So this is a good example of how a well-organized community have organized their support, and it's not the case for instance, for biologists who are only at the start of this, and they need somebody to say what kind of problem they have.
But you have somebody like Paul who forms that bridge between the network guys and the scientists.
Yes.
But
The biologists have
bottom
the
line
same.
is there's a set of tools or software that's being developed, workflow tools of some such. I mean, if the scientists aren't actually worried about, what path their network, their data takes through the network, then there's some automated tool doing that for them. Right?
But I think there are many important points, including like integration with other elements than just network in your presentation, but also in a less developed manner. The experience we've had in Denmark is that if you meet the researcher, he's got other solutions. I mean, last week I was in Aarhus University, and one of the guys asked me, "What's the problem with shipping hard drives?" It works, for now it's enough. It works right now. DHL is reliable. And then you've got like the IT department of Aarhus University, who says maybe it's interesting, but it's going to be extra work for us at least in the first period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then this guy said, okay, let's say we do that. The endpoints we want to reach are in Grenoble in France.
Mm-hmm.
And then Renater is not part of the service. So we need someone to pay for the 1 gig
Mm-hmm.
through Renater and then through the regional network there. And who's going to pay for that?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got all these obstacles. And if we can't, pay attention to them and find lightweight solutions, I'm really trying to introduce Tomek's next presentation. Also technically, then actually that we can on part of the network deliver any kind of bandwidth on demand, NSI provisioned circuits is less relevant or becomes far less relevant. So we really need to work on that.
I would like to comment on your point that some users may regard shipping of hard disks as a good solution because, maybe for one hard disk is not a big problem, but most users are not, who say that, are not the ones responsible for plugging in the disks and making sure that the data is transferred. I've spoken to people whose job it is to not only at Sarah, also at Sarah. I spoke to somebody. He said, "Well, it's really a pain in the ass to do all this work and make sure that all these disks are the data of this disk is come to the server, and the users don't have to pay my time for that."
Well, as Guy Elms once said, never underestimate the bandwidth delay product of a 747 filled with hard disks.
Yeah, and especially if you as a scientist are waiting for just a small bit of it, and you have to wait for the whole batch of data is on all the disks, and it's being transferred. While, for instance, the example of the complete genomics, the data is from the start when it's sequenced, it's already on disk, and you will already have access it from the start.
But
A little bit similar to the.
If you look at the bigger picture there, that comment goes back to the thing of being simple, right?
Mhm.
They're not interested in interesting ways of doing this. They're interested in productivity. It's easier for them to get that disk shipped than it is to set up all this other stuff to get it done over the network.
Yeah.
So our task really is to simplify that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
just simplify.
Yes.
Just make do what?
And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
I think the problem is, if I can have a comment, is again, it's at the edge. I mean, inside our networks, we'll probably make it work.
In this room, we could probably make it work, but we still have this last mile that, it doesn't matter if we make it work if the last mile is still the problem.
I'm not entirely certain about that. I think a lot of the work, the infrastructure, the tools, the systems that we're developing here and that we're trying to get deployed do actually simplify it for the last mile. It doesn't cost a lot to deploy a server with an NSA on it, right? That talks to an MX80. Right?
Well,
But you're saying that because you know what you know.
no, but my
You're not the guy at the local IT
Well, no,
department.
but what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that I'm not sure that this hard stop of the last mile is really one that's anything less than just going out and talking to them about a promotion of getting them to understand that these services are not difficult or expensive to deploy.
I just actually like the next question. It's probably not in this room necessarily. Also, like for the we used to have a group which was called like the BOD PR group, which was probably not. We didn't know necessarily how to do stuff. I think to reproduce or get some inspiration of what's being presented here about how to get in touch with the people who are potentially interested in using that kind of services and everything. I would like to hear if there are suggestions, and it might not be you in this room who can do that. Nordunet, you can't even talk today because you don't have end users. But
So much nicer running on network than end users.
but I'd be interested in following up on that because as mentioned before, it's actually very central to continue doing what we were doing. One thing is you looking for new partners for Enlighten Your Research Global in the future.
I think for the current contest is only with a small number of partners. I think it would be interesting to look at the future of how to set up another international or maybe European call for proposals and using, for instance, the Géant infrastructure. I have seen, well, we know that in Europe are a lot of projects which are organized pan-European, like the S3 projects, and I think there's it's not only a good opportunity to learn to know the users, but also how to set up an international service, because this consultation round I explained, it's much easier to organize within the Netherlands when you know everybody, but the consultation round in a global competition was much more difficult to organize, and it's important to learn how to serve such larger multinational research projects. And I think these kind of projects will become more important in the future, especially here in Europe, when more and more research is funded on a European level.
One of the things we're doing, for example, is because I know in SurfNet you have some people in bioinformatics who are interested in that kind of services. I know in Denmark we have similar users, and I know they have a pan-European project called Elixir.
Yes.
So now we're trying to do and I think it's a good way of proceeding. We're trying to set up a meeting between the Elixir guys and the Géant guys, probably Géant in the broad sense of the term, where we look at the network requirements. It might be that it's not bandwidth on demand they need, but some kinds of other kind of connectivity services, because it's security that matters. The only problem is that it's not as we don't get as much attention as the guy doing storage or compute necessarily.
No, that I think we have to accept.
Yeah,
but that's why we team up with them. If you can't beat them, join them.
I would like to get it. Anyway, I think we need to move to Tomek's presentation.
Yeah.
And if you want to grab a cup of coffee, it's maybe just. Maybe if you want 2 minutes, or you can set up your computer.